Nothing in the universe made them afraid, until Commander Cade's Suicide Squad breached Admiral Corps' impenetrable flagship. With quantum disruptors planted throughout the vessel and his finger hovering over the trigger, Cade offered the unthinkable: not surrender, but ceasefire. "We don't fight because we're unafraid to die," he told the stunned admiral, "but because we believe in something worth living for." The obsidian-hulled flagship, Inevitable Conquest, cut through the void like a blade of absolute darkness. Its surface absorbed, rather than reflected light, a technological marvel that made the vessel appear as a moving absence among the stars. Admiral Valen Corr stood at the observation deck, his tall, gaunt frame silhouetted against the vast emptiness of space. 12 battle honors were etched into the armor plates covering his left shoulder, one for each system brought under Karen control during his command. 10,000 worlds, he murmured, more to himself than to Lieutenant Commander Sarantala, who stood 2 paces behind him. 10,000 worlds have fallen to the Dominion, and not one has offered meaningful resistance. Saren maintained the proper posture expected of a strategic aide, spine straight, hands clasped behind her back, eyes forward. "The Karen way is perfection, Admiral. Our tactics evolve with each conquest. Our technology assimilates every advantage. We are the inevitable conclusion of intelligent life." Valen nodded once, a sharp military gesture that matched the clean, geometric lines of his battle dress. Unlike many of his rank, he wore his scars openly, 3 precise lines across his right cheek, awarded after his first command, a cosmetic choice that enhanced, rather than marred, his severe features. "The Third Armada stands ready for jump, Admiral," Saren reported. 500 capital ships, 2,000 support vessels. The archivists have completed their preliminary assessment of Sector 4729. "Bring in Nerelis," Valen commanded. "I wish to hear their findings directly." Moments later, the bridge doors parted to admit a figure distinctly different from the military personnel. Where Karen officers wore black and silver with geometric precision, Archivist Nerelis favored layered robes of deep blue, marked with the symbols of xenological classification. Unlike the soldiers, whose silver-tinged skin was kept hairless for battle armor efficiency, Nerelis maintained the traditional scholar's mane, silver-white strands that framed a face marked with knowledge scars rather than battle honors. "Admiral," Nerelis bowed, the proper depth for a civilian addressing military command. "The preliminary surveys of Sector 4729 indicate 11 inhabited systems. 10 show primitive development, pre-spaceflight, tribal, or early industrial. Standard subjugation protocols will suffice." "And the 11th?" Valen prompted, still gazing out at his assembled fleet. "The 3rd planet of a yellow star. The natives call it Earth. Their technology level is inconsistent. They have achieved rudimentary spaceflight, established outposts on neighboring planets and moons. Yet their weapon systems remain primitive. No faster-than-light capability detected. No unified planetary defense." Valen turned now, his silver eyes narrowing. "Assessment." Nerelis consulted a data tablet. "Category 3 civilization. Expected resistance, minimal. Recommended approach. Standard first contact protocol followed by immediate subjugation. They call themselves humans." "Humans," Valen repeated, testing the unfamiliar word. "Prepare the vanguard, Lieutenant Commander Tala. You will coordinate with Archivist Nerelis on the first contact linguistics. I want translation matrices prepared before we reach their system." "Yes, Admiral," Saren acknowledged. "Discover, subjugate, assimilate." Valen recited the Dominion doctrine that had served them across 10 millennia of expansion. The pattern remains unbroken. As the others departed to carry out their orders, Valen returned his gaze to the assembled armada. The ships hung in perfect formation, a geometric expression of Karen might. Not a single vessel out of position by even a kilometer. Not a single commander harboring doubt. The pattern would continue. It always had. The warp engines engaged across the fleet in perfect synchronization, 500 tiers in space-time opening simultaneously. The Third Armada vanished into the darkness, bound for yet another inevitable victory. 3 weeks later, Admiral Valancourt stared at the damage report scrolling across his command console with an emotion he had never experienced before. The sinking, burning sensation in his chest was unfamiliar enough that he required several moments to identify it. Shame. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice unnaturally tight. The holographic display at the center of the bridge flickered, then resolved into the image of the Ceres outpost. A primitive human habitat constructed on an unremarkable asteroid in the outer reaches of their home system. The Dominion scout frigates had approached according to standard protocol, a show of overwhelming force designed to trigger immediate capitulation. Instead, the recording showed 3 small human vessels breaking from the outpost. Crude, utilitarian ships, without the elegant biomechanical design of Karen craft. The Dominion frigates had deployed boarding teams to disable communications, a routine first step in planetary subjugation. Then, the unthinkable happened. The lead human vessel accelerated directly toward the nearest frigate. Sensors registered a massive energy buildup. The humans had overloaded their reactor core. The resulting collision triggered an electromagnetic pulse that cascaded through the frigate's systems. As the Dominion vessel reeled, powerless, 2 more human ships executed the same maneuver against the supporting frigates. 3 Karen vessels disabled, 2 destroyed outright, 178 Dominion soldiers lost. The first defeat in Valen's career. "Tactical assessment," he demanded, his voice like ice. Sarantala stepped forward, her composure intact despite the unprecedented setback. "The humans employed suicide tactics. Admiral, they sacrificed their ships and crews to disable our advance force." "Why?" Valen's question cut through the bridge like a blade. "No species has ever chosen death over submission. It defies logic." "I cannot say, Admiral," Saren replied. "It contradicts all known psychological profiles of Category 3 civilizations." Valen turned to Archivist Nirales, who had been summoned to the bridge following the incident. "Your assessment was flawed, Archivist." Nirales bowed deeply, acknowledging the error. "I apologize, Admiral. The preliminary data did not indicate this level of resistance. I request permission to gather more comprehensive psychological profiles on these humans." "Granted," Valen said coldly. "You have 48 hours before we proceed to their lunar outpost. I want to know why they choose death over the honor of joining the Dominion." As the bridge cleared, Sarantala remained, her posture perfect, but her silver eyes troubled. "Permission to speak freely, Admiral?" "Granted, Lieutenant Commander." "Why would any species sacrifice ships and crews when no other has ever chosen to do so? What makes these humans different?" Valen's expression hardened. "A question I intend to have answered, Lieutenant Commander. Perhaps they simply don't understand the futility of resistance. We shall educate them." After Saren departed, Valen returned to the damage reports. 3 ships, a minuscule loss in the context of his vast armada. Yet the implications disturbed him deeply. For the first time in his distinguished career, Admiral Valancourt felt the cold touch of uncertainty. The lunar outpost, Luna Station, in human parlance, hung in the void above the blue-green homeworld. Primitive by Dominion standards, yet Valen observed the efficient design with growing wariness. The humans had constructed their base primarily on the side facing their planet, but thermal scans showed extensive development on the far side as well. "Deployment pattern Sigma 3, Valen ordered. "I want overwhelming force visible to their observers. Let them understand the consequences of continued resistance." The Dominion cruisers arranged themselves in a perfect hemisphere above the lunar surface. Weapons ports open in silent threat. Standard psychological warfare. The sight alone had broken the will of countless civilizations. Opening communication channels, the communications officer announced. Broadcasting surrender protocols on all detected frequencies. Valen waited, counting the seconds. The humans had witnessed the power of his armada. They had lost their outer outpost. Logic dictated immediate capitulation. The response came not through communication channels, but in a blinding flash from the lunar far side. Hidden installations, completely undetected by Dominion scanners, erupted with weapon fire. Primitive projectile weapons, yet accelerated to speeds that transformed simple metal slugs into devastating kinetic projectiles. "Evasive maneuvers!" Valen shouted as the first impacts registered. 3 cruisers took direct hits, their shields collapsing under the unexpected assault. A 4th vessel lost propulsion and began drifting, its elegant lines marred by a gaping wound. "Impossible," the tactical officer whispered. "Their weapons are... They're just metal projectiles accelerated by electromagnetic rails. How did we not detect them?" "They buried them," Saren realized, examining the sensor data. "Beneath the lunar regolith. Our scans registered them as part of the natural terrain." Valen's face betrayed no emotion, but his voice carried a dangerous edge. "Deploy ground forces. I want those installations captured intact. I want prisoners for interrogation." As the dropships descended toward the lunar surface, Valen turned to Nirales. "Your report, Archivist. What have you learned about these humans?" Nirales approached, data tablet in hand. "Admiral, human psychology defies Dominion classification parameters. They exhibit contradictory traits, simultaneously hierarchical and individualistic, peaceful, yet warlike. Their historical records show constant conflict among their own kind, yet also unprecedented cooperation when faced with external threats." "Explain their suicide tactics," Valen demanded. "Not suicide. Admiral, sacrifice. There is a distinction in their thinking. They value the collective over the individual in crisis scenarios. Those who die to protect others are recorded in their histories as heroes." "Heroes," Valen repeated the alien concept. "They celebrate death?" "They celebrate purpose," Nirales corrected. "The continuation of their species appears to outweigh individual survival in their value hierarchy." A proximity alert interrupted their conversation. On the tactical display, the lunar surface erupted with unexpected activity. Human defenders had emerged from hidden bunkers, engaging the Dominion ground forces with asymmetric tactics. Where Karan troops advanced in perfect formation, the humans scattered, using the cratered terrain to their advantage. "Status report," Valen demanded. "Ground forces encountering heavy resistance. Admiral, the humans they're not fighting according to any recognized doctrine. They're using the natural terrain features, employing hit-and-run tactics. Our formations are breaking down." For the second time in his career, both instances within the same week, Admiral Valen Kor faced defeat. He made his decision swiftly. "Orbital bombardment. Reduce their installations to dust." "Admiral," Saren interjected, "there are still Dominion troops on the surface." Valen's gaze was cold. "They will be remembered for their service to the Dominion. Execute the order." The cruisers repositioned, energy weapons charging. The lunar surface erupted in a series of devastating impacts, each blast vaporizing kilometers of terrain. When the assault concluded, nothing remained of the human installations but glassed craters. "Casualties?" Valen inquired. 17 ships damaged or destroyed. Approximately 900 ground troops lost, Saren reported, her voice carefully neutral. "And the humans?" "Unknown. Their command structure appears decentralized. We've detected emergency launches from the far side, small vessels heading toward their homeworld." Valen's expression darkened. "They retreat to regroup. Archivist Nirales, continue your analysis. I want to understand these creatures before we engage them at their Mars colony." He turned to his tactical officer. And enhance our scanning protocols. I will not be surprised again. As the bridge cleared, Saren remained, watching the Admiral with growing concern. In all her years serving under Valen Kor, she had never seen him order the abandonment of Dominion troops. The humans had achieved something unprecedented. They had forced the perfect Admiral to make an imperfect choice. The red planet loomed in the view screens, its surface marked by the unmistakable geometry of artificial structures. The human Mars colony, a collection of domed habitats connected by transport tubes, power installations, harvesting solar energy, and what appeared to be rudimentary manufacturing facilities. Tactical analysis, Valen demanded. The colony appears primarily scientific and industrial in nature, the tactical officer reported. Minimal military presence detected. Population approximately 20,000 humans. Their defenses? Standard orbital satellites. Nothing comparable to the lunar installations. Recommendation: immediate ground assault to secure the colony intact. Valen studied the holographic representation of the Martian surface, his eyes narrowing. The lunar battle has taught me caution, Commander. These humans employ deception as strategy. Scan for subsurface anomalies. The sensors swept the Martian terrain, penetrating meters below the dusty surface. Anomalies detected, Admiral. Metallic signatures at all projected drop zones. They appear to be explosive devices. A cold smile touched Valen's lips. Not this time. Target the detected explosives from orbit, then deploy ground forces to secondary landing zones. The precision strikes eliminated the buried threats, sending plumes of red dust into the thin Martian atmosphere. Dropships descended through the haze, Dominion troops deploying in perfect formation across the rust-colored landscape. Ground forces report minimal resistance, the communications officer announced, proceeding to primary habitat dome. Valen nodded, satisfied. The humans learned the futility of... Alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical display showed dozens of small signatures emerging from what had appeared to be natural formations on the Martian surface. "What are those?" Valen demanded. "Robotic units," the tactical officer replied, bewilderment in his voice. "Small, heavily armored. They're swarming our formations." The video feed from the ground forces showed the chaos. Mechanical constructs, resembling the native Martian beetles with multiple limbs and low profiles, had emerged from hidden caches. They moved with surprising speed across the difficult terrain, latching onto Dominion soldiers with mechanical pincers, injecting explosive charges directly into armor joints. "Casualties mounting," the tactical officer reported. "Our troops are falling back to the dropships." Valen slammed his fist against the command console. "Where is their commander? Who coordinates these machines?" A new signal appeared on the communication channels. A human face resolved on the main view screen, female, with dark skin and eyes that reflected determination rather than fear. "This is Colonel Marin Voss, Mars Defense Force," the human announced in flawlessly translated Quran. "Your troops are trapped between our Scarab drones and the perimeter defenses. I offer you one opportunity to withdraw without further bloodshed." Valen stepped forward, allowing the communication system to capture his image. "This is Admiral Valen Kor, Supreme Commander of the Third Armada, Karan Dominion. Your resistance is noted for its ingenuity, but remains futile. Surrender your colony, and your people will be integrated into the Dominion with full honors." Colonel Voss's expression didn't change. "We've studied your integration, Admiral, biological reconditioning, cultural erasure, genetic resequencing to match Karan standards. We choose to remain human." "Then you choose extinction," Valen replied coldly. "No species has ever successfully resisted the Dominion." "There's always a first time," Voss responded, and terminated the communication. Valen turned to his officers. "Orbital bombardment. Target their habitat domes." "Admiral," Saren interjected, "there are 20,000 civilians in those habitats." They chose resistance, Valen stated flatly. Execute the order. The weapons platforms aligned, energy building to destructive potential. Moments before firing, alarms sounded again. Multiple launches detected from the Martian surface, the tactical officer reported. They're evacuating the habitats. Transport ships heading for Earth. Intercept them, Valen commanded. Unable to comply. Admiral, the robotic units have deployed some form of interference field. Our targeting systems cannot lock onto the transports. Valen watched in cold fury as the evacuation proceeded. Continue with the bombardment. Reduce their colony to dust. The energy weapons discharged, transforming the Martian habitats into molten slag. When the assault concluded, nothing remained of the colony but blackened craters and twisted metal. Damage assessment, Valen demanded. All human structures destroyed, Admiral. However, most of their population appears to have escaped. We've also lost approximately 2,000 ground troops and 37 dropships. Valen's expression betrayed nothing. But inside, his certainty had begun to crack. 2,000 elite Dominion soldiers lost to primitive robots and simple traps. The humans had sacrificed their colony, but preserved their population. A strategic retreat, rather than a defeat. Set course for their Europa base, he ordered. I will crush their resistance at every outpost until they understand the inevitable outcome. As the fleet adjusted its trajectory toward the Jovian moon, Saren approached Archivist Nirales in a quiet corner of the bridge. These humans, she whispered, they fight differently than any species we've encountered. Why don't they surrender when faced with superior force? Nirales studied the data scrolling across his tablet. I've been analyzing their cultural transmissions. There's a concept that appears frequently in their communications. Hope. Hope? Saren repeated. Define. It defies precise definition in Karan terms, Nirales admitted. It appears to be a belief that future conditions will improve, despite present evidence to the contrary. An illogical, but powerful motivating force. Saren considered this alien concept. In Karan thinking, the future was determined by present power. The strong conquered, the weak submitted. There was no place for hope. Does the Admiral know? She asked. I've included it in my reports, Nirales replied. But I don't believe he understands its significance. How can one comprehend a force that exists despite all logical evidence against it? Saren watched Valen at the command console, his posture rigid, his expression carved from stone. For the first time in her career, she wondered if the pattern that had served the Dominion for 10 millennia might finally have met its exception. The Europa base hung like a gleaming insect against the icy surface of Jupiter's moon. Unlike the utilitarian designs of the Mars colony, this outpost showed more aesthetic consideration, curves rather than angles, transparent domes revealing gardens within. A small fleet of defensive satellites orbited the base, primitive by Dominion standards. Tactical assessment, Valen requested, his voice betraying no emotion despite the consecutive setbacks at Ceres, Luna, and Mars. Minimal military capability detected, the tactical officer reported. The base appears primarily scientific in nature. Population approximately 5,000 humans. Their defenses? Standard orbital satellites. Nothing that poses a threat to our cruisers. Valen studied the holographic representation with narrowed eyes. I no longer trust standard assessments when it comes to these humans. Deploy electronic warfare suites. I want all their communications intercepted and analyzed before we engage. The electronic warfare specialists worked efficiently, their systems penetrating the primitive human encryption. Within minutes, they had full access to the Europa base's communication networks. Admiral, the communications officer called, you should hear this. A cacophony of voices filled the bridge. Karan voices, reading from Dominion tactical manuals. The humans were broadcasting Dominion battle orders, technical specifications, even private communications between ships. How? Valen demanded, genuine shock breaking through his composure. How do they have access to secure Dominion protocols? They've been gathering data from each engagement, Saren realized. The series ships transmitted information before self-destructing. The lunar installations recorded our tactical responses. The Mars colony's drones must have contained data collection modules. They're learning, Nerelis added, a note of what might have been admiration in his voice. Adapting to our methods with each encounter. Valen's face hardened into a mask of cold fury. Cut all non-essential communications. Revert to primitive signaling if necessary. I want those broadcasts silenced. Before his orders could be implemented, the main view screen activated without command input. A human face appeared, elderly by their standards, with white hair and deeply lined features. Admiral Valen Kor, the human said in perfect Karen. I am Dr. Eleanor Rivas, Director of Europa Research Station. I've been studying your language and protocols since your arrival in our system. You waste your efforts, human, Valen replied. Your station will fall like the others. Dr. Rivas smiled, the expression unsettling in its confidence. Perhaps. But first, I thought you might be interested in what we've learned about Karen psychology. Your species evolved as apex predators on a resource-poor world. Your biological imperative to expand is embedded in your neural pathways. But there's something missing from your collective psyche, isn't there? Something you've never needed to develop. Silence this transmission, Valen ordered. Fear, Dr. Rivas continued, undeterred. Your species never learned to fear because you never encountered a force that could truly threaten you. Until now. The transmission cut off as Dominion technicians regained control of the systems. Valen stood motionless, the human's words echoing in his mind. Fear. An alien concept, like hope. Unnecessary in the face of Dominion supremacy. Launch the attack, he commanded. I want that base destroyed and all data cores retrieved. The assault on Europa base proceeded with mechanical precision. Dominion cruisers disabled the defensive satellites with contemptuous ease. Dropships deployed ground forces to the surface. The human defenders fought with the same desperate ingenuity they had shown at previous outposts. But they were overwhelmed by superior numbers and technology. Within hours, the Europa base had fallen. Unlike the previous engagements, Valen had prioritized capturing the facility intact. He wanted their data, their research, their understanding of Koran psychology. He needed to know how these primitives had achieved what no other species had managed, creating uncertainty in the mind of a Dominion admiral. Casualties, he inquired. Minimal. Admiral, the tactical officer reported. 212 ground troops lost, 3 dropships damaged. The human defenders have been neutralized. And Dr. Rivas? Captured, Admiral. She awaits your interrogation. Valen nodded, satisfied. Secure all data cores. I want their research analyzed immediately. Set course for Earth. It's time to end this resistance at its source. Later, in the interrogation chamber, Valen stood face to face with Dr. Eleanor Rivas. The elderly human showed no fear despite her restraints and the clinical sterility of the Dominion ship. Your resistance has been noted for its uniqueness, Valen stated. No other species has employed your tactics. Explain your strategic thinking. Dr. Rivas studied him with clinical interest. You truly don't understand, do you? This isn't about strategy, Admiral. It's about survival. Not just physical survival, but the survival of what makes us human. You would have survived as part of the Dominion, Valen countered. Your biological functions would have continued. Existence isn't the same as living, Rivas replied. We fight because we have something worth fighting for. Our identities, our cultures, our freedom to determine our own future. Inefficient, Valen dismissed. The Dominion brings order to chaos, unity to division, perfection to imperfection. "And what happens when perfection encounters something it cannot perfect?" Rivas asked. "What happens when the pattern breaks?" Valen's silver eyes narrowed. "The pattern does not break. 10,000 worlds prove this truth. Until Earth," Rivas said simply. "We are your exception, Admiral, and exceptions are the beginning of new rules." As Valen turned to leave, Rivas called after him. "We've already transmitted everything we know about your psychology and tactics to Earth. They're waiting for you. They're ready." For the first time in his life, Admiral Valen Kor felt a sensation he could not immediately classify. It began in his chest and radiated outward, accelerating his heart rate and sharpening his senses. Only later, reviewing his physiological data, would he recognize the experience for what it was, the first stirrings of fear. The blue-green planet hung in the view screen, cloud patterns swirling across its surface, oceans reflecting the light of its yellow star. Earth, the homeworld of the species that had defied the pattern established across 10,000 conquered worlds. "Final tactical assessment," Valen commanded, his voice betraying nothing of his inner uncertainty. "The planet maintains significant military installations on all continents," the tactical officer reported. "Population approximately 8 billion humans. They've consolidated their remaining space-based assets around a structure they call New Terra, an orbital habitat at Lagrange Point L5. "Show me," Valen ordered. The tactical display shifted to reveal an impressive construction, a rotating wheel nearly 5 kilometers in diameter, with spokes connecting to a central hub. Solar arrays extended like wings, harvesting energy from the system's star. Defensive platforms surrounded the habitat, their weapon systems primitive but numerous. "This is their final stronghold," Valen observed. "They've evacuated key personnel from their planet to this station." "Correct, Admiral," Saren confirmed. "Intelligence suggests their political and military leadership has relocated to New Terra. The planet below maintains distributed command structures, but strategic coordination appears centered on the orbital habitat." Valen studied the display, mentally calculating attack vectors and defensive capabilities. "Deploy the Armada in standard conquest formation. I want overwhelming force visible to their sensors. Let them witness the futility of continued resistance." The Dominion fleet moved into position, 500 capital ships arranged in a perfect hemisphere, facing the planet and the orbital habitat. A display of power that had broken the will of countless civilizations. "Open communication channels," Valen ordered. "I will offer them one final opportunity to surrender." The view screen flickered, then resolved to show a human face, female, with dark skin and close-cropped gray hair. Her uniform, adorned with symbols of rank, marked her as a military leader of significant status. "Admiral Valen Kor," she acknowledged, her expression calm despite the overwhelming force arrayed against her world. "I am General Aaliyah Bowers, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. I understand you wish to discuss terms." "Not terms, General," Valen corrected. "Surrender. Your species has fought with unprecedented determination, but the outcome remains inevitable. The Dominion has conquered 10,000 worlds. Earth will be 10,001. General Bowers nodded, as if considering his words. "We've studied your conquests, Admiral. 10,000 worlds where resistance was minimal or non-existent. Species that submitted to the pattern, as you call it. But patterns exist to be broken." "Your defiance is noted," Valen replied coldly. "But it changes nothing. Surrender now, and your people will be integrated into the Dominion with full honors. Resist, and you face extinction. We choose a third option," Bowers stated. "Coexistence. We recognize the power of the Dominion, but we will not surrender our humanity. We propose a treaty, the first in your history. I believe Earth remains sovereign. But we established diplomatic and trade relations with the Karan Dominion. Valen's expression hardened. The Dominion does not negotiate with lesser species. This conversation is concluded. Prepare your defenses. General, you have 1 hour before we commence our attack. As the communication ended, Saren approached the Admiral's position. Their proposal is unprecedented, she observed quietly. No species has ever suggested coexistence rather than submission, because they know their defeat is inevitable. Valen dismissed. This is a delaying tactic, nothing more. Prepare the fleet for engagement. The hour passed with ominous silence. No further communications from Earth or New Terra. No visible changes to their defensive posture. The stillness itself became unsettling, a break from the pattern of desperate resistance the humans had established. Commence the attack, Valen ordered, as the deadline expired. All ships, advance and engage. The Dominion fleet moved forward with perfect coordination, weapon systems charging, targeting the orbital habitat and key planetary defense installations. As they crossed the midpoint between their holding position and Earth orbit, sensors detected energy signatures from New Terra. Launch detected, the tactical officer announced. Multiple small vessels deploying from the habitat. Intercept them, Valen commanded. They attempt evacuation. Do not allow their leadership to escape. The tactical display showed dozens of small craft emerging from New Terra's hangars. Sleek, black vessels, unlike the utilitarian designs the humans had employed previously. They accelerated toward the Dominion fleet with surprising speed. Those aren't evacuation ships, Saren realized, studying the sensor data. They're attack craft. The design is... Admiral, they're using Dominion technology. Those are stealth corvettes based on our own designs. Impossible, Valen whispered, watching as the human vessels disappeared from sensors, their stealth systems activating. How could they have reverse-engineered our technology so quickly? Europa base, Nirales, suggested from his position near the science consoles. Dr. Rivas's research team must have been studying Dominion tech since our first encounters. They've adapted our own stealth systems against us. Alarms blared across the bridge as the first impacts registered. The human corvettes had reappeared inside the Dominion formation, launching precision strikes against key vessels. Unlike previous human attacks, these targeted command and control systems rather than attempting to destroy ships outright. They're not trying to kill us, Saren observed. They're disrupting our communication networks, breaking down our coordination. Adapt targeting protocols, Valen ordered. Use visual acquisition if necessary. I want those corvettes destroyed. The Dominion fleet responded, adjusting to the human tactics with the adaptability that had made them unstoppable for 10 millennia. The elegant black ships began tracking and firing on the human vessels, despite their stealth capabilities. We're neutralizing their attack craft, the tactical officer reported. 30% destroyed, 40%. They cannot penetrate our adaptive defenses for long. Valen nodded, satisfaction returning, the pattern reasserting itself. Superior technology and tactics prevailing over desperate innovation. Then a new alarm sounded, this one originating from within the flagship itself. Internal breach detected, the security officer announced, genuine alarm in his voice. Deck 17, Section 9. Human commandos have boarded the vessel. Impossible, Valen hissed. Our shields are intact, our hangars sealed. They've breached through the maintenance airlock, the security officer reported. They're using some form of thermite charge to cut through internal bulkheads, moving toward the primary reactor control room. Valen's mind raced through possibilities. The corvette attack had been a diversion, drawing attention outward while a commando team infiltrated his flagship, a strategy he himself might have devised. Lock down all critical systems, he ordered. Deploy internal security teams. I want those humans captured. Security teams engaging, the officer reported. The humans are... They're wearing some form of powered armor. Dominion small arms are having minimal effect. The tactical display showed the progress of the intruders, a small team, moving with military precision through the ship's corridors. Where they encountered resistance, they employed devastating close-quarters tactics, their enhanced armor allowing them to absorb punishment that would have killed unprotected humans. "They're approaching the bridge," the security officer warned. "All intervening security teams have been neutralized." Valen drew his sidearm, an elegant energy weapon that had never been fired outside of training exercises. "Seal the bridge. Prepare for close-quarters defense." The massive doors to the bridge sealed with a hydraulic hiss, multiple locking mechanisms engaging. The command staff drew weapons, taking defensive positions around critical systems. "Admiral," Saren said quietly, "if they've penetrated this far, they must have a specific objective. What are they trying to accomplish?" Before Valen could respond, a series of explosions rocked the bridge doors. Smoke billowed through the resulting breach, obscuring the entrance. Through the haze, armored figures emerged, 5 humans in powered exoskeletons that resembled Dominion battle armor, but with crude, functional modifications. The lead figure removed their helmet, revealing a face streaked with sweat and determination, a human male with dark eyes that held no fear, only purpose. "Commander Leon Cade, Earth Special Forces," he announced in fluent Karin. "Admiral Valen Kor, I suggest you order your crew to stand down." Valen aimed his weapon at the human's exposed head. "You have breached the flagship of the Third Armada. Your tactical achievement is noted, but changes nothing. You and your team will die here." Cade smiled, the expression incongruous in the tense standoff. "Perhaps, but not before we complete our mission." He held up a small device, a quantum disruptor, Dominion technology designed to destabilize energy systems. "We've placed these throughout your ship, your engines, weapons, shields, all compromised. This one's for your bridge systems. You would die in the resulting cascade," Valen observed. "For Earth?" "Without hesitation," Cade replied, his finger hovering over the activation switch. "But there's another option. Open a channel to your fleet. Order them to stand down." Valen's silver eyes narrowed. "The Dominion does not surrender." "Not surrender," Cade corrected. "A ceasefire. Time to talk instead of destroy. Time to consider that there might be a pattern beyond conquest." For a long moment, the bridge hung in silence. Dominion officers with weapons trained on the human commandos. Cade, with his finger on the quantum disruptor. Saren watched Valen's face, seeing the calculation behind his silver eyes. The pattern that had guided the Dominion for 10 millennia demanded resistance to the end. Yet, something new had entered the equation, the realization that these humans would indeed sacrifice themselves without hesitation. Before Valen could respond, system alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical display showed catastrophic failures cascading through the flagship's defensive systems. "Shields failing," the tactical officer reported, panic entering his voice for the first time. "Weapon systems offline. Engine control compromised." "The other teams," Cade explained calmly. "While we've been talking, they've been activating their disruptors throughout your fleet. Your perfect formation is breaking down. Admiral, for the first time, the Karin Dominion faces an enemy it cannot simply overwhelm." As if to emphasize his point, the view screen showed Dominion vessels drifting out of formation, their systems failing in synchronized chaos. The elegant black ships, symbols of Dominion invincibility, now vulnerable, their technological superiority neutralized by human ingenuity and sacrifice. Valen lowered his weapon slowly, the gesture costing him more than any previous defeat. "What do you propose, Commander Cade?" "General Bowers requests your presence on New Terra. A neutral meeting to discuss terms that preserve both Karin honor and human sovereignty." "And if I refuse?" Cade's finger remained on the disruptor. Then, I complete my mission, and the flagship of the Third Armada becomes a monument to human determination. In that moment, looking into the human's unwavering eyes, Admiral Valencourt understood what Archivist Nerales had tried to explain. Hope, the irrational belief in a future better than logic would suggest possible. These humans fought not from desperation, but from conviction. "I will meet with your general," Valen conceded, the words unfamiliar on his tongue. As Cade lowered the disruptor, he offered one final observation. "We don't fight because we're unafraid to die, Admiral. We fight because we believe there are things worth living for." The quantum disruptors had been programmed with precision, disabling key systems without causing catastrophic failures. As Dominion engineers worked to restore basic functionality to the flagship, Valen prepared for the unprecedented diplomatic meeting. No Kharan admiral had ever negotiated with a conquered or unconquered species. "The shuttle is prepared, Admiral," Saren reported. "General Bowers has granted you safe passage to New Terra. I will accompany you as protocol dictates." Valen nodded, adjusting his formal armor, battle decorations prominently displayed. "And Archivist Nerales requests permission to join the delegation. His expertise in human psychology may prove valuable." "Granted," Valen decided. "I want to understand these humans before I face their general." The journey to New Terra proceeded in silence. The Dominion shuttle escorted by human vessels. Through the viewports, Valen observed the orbital habitat growing larger, its rotating wheel design creating artificial gravity, its transparent sections revealing gardens and water features. Not the utilitarian military installation he had expected, but a genuine attempt to create a home among the stars. As they docked at the central hub, Saren leaned closer to Valen. "Admiral, what are your intentions for this meeting?" Valen's expression remained unreadable. "To understand the anomaly. These humans have broken the pattern that has served the Dominion for 10 millennia. I must determine if they represent a threat that requires complete extermination, or a resource that could enhance Dominion capabilities." The airlock cycled, and they were met by an honor guard of human soldiers, their uniforms crisp, their weapons respectfully lowered but visible. Commander Cade stood at their head, now dressed in formal military attire, rather than battle armor. "Admiral Kor," he acknowledged with a precise nod. "General Bowers awaits in the central chamber. Your officers are welcome to accompany you." The interior of New Terra surprised Valen with its elegant design, where Dominion architecture emphasized geometric precision and functional minimalism. The human habitat incorporated natural elements, water flowing through channels alongside walkways, plants growing from carefully designed planters, even small trees creating green spaces at intersections. The effect was both alien and somehow appealing, a controlled wildness that contradicted Kharan aesthetic principles. The central chamber expanded above them, its domed ceiling transparent to reveal the stars beyond. A circular table occupied the center, with the earth visible through the floor beneath it, a deliberate symbolic choice that did not escape Valen's notice. General Bowers stood as they entered, flanked by her own advisors. "Admiral Valencourt," she greeted him, her voice carrying the natural authority of long command. "Welcome to New Terra." Valen performed the formal Kharan greeting between military equals, a gesture never before extended to a non-Dominion commander. "General Aaliyah Bowers, your tactical innovations have been noted." A small smile touched Bowers' lips. "High praise from the conqueror of 10,000 worlds. Please, be seated. We have much to discuss." As they took their places around the table, Valen studied the human leader. Unlike Commander Cade's intensity or Dr. Rivas's clinical curiosity, General Bowers projected a calm certainty, the composure of one who had faced impossible odds and refused to acknowledge them. Your Commander Cade indicated that you wish to discuss terms. Valen began, the concept still alien to his thinking. I am authorized to accept your complete surrender and integration into the Dominion. Bowers nodded, unsurprised. And I am authorized to offer an unprecedented alternative, an alliance between equals. Earth remains sovereign, but we establish diplomatic, scientific, and cultural exchange with the Kharan Dominion. Impossible, Valen dismissed. The Dominion does not recognize equals. Then perhaps it's time for the Dominion to evolve, Bowers suggested. Your civilization has conquered 10,000 worlds, yet none have offered the resistance Earth has mounted. Doesn't that suggest we have something valuable to offer besides submission? Archivist Nirales leaned forward, interest clear in his scholarly features. If I may, Admiral, General Bowers raises a valid point from a xenological perspective. The humans have demonstrated adaptive capabilities beyond any species we've encountered. Their psychology, particularly their concepts of hope and sacrifice, represents evolutionary paths the Kharan never developed. Are you suggesting the Dominion could learn from these humans? Valen asked, the concept challenging millennia of Kharan doctrine. I am suggesting that true conquest lies not in subjugation, but in assimilation of valuable traits. Nirales replied carefully. The humans have demonstrated problem-solving approaches that could enhance Dominion capabilities. General Bowers spread her hands on the table's surface, a human gesture of openness. We've studied your society as much as you've studied ours, Admiral. The Kharan Dominion values perfection, efficiency, expansion. We value innovation, diversity, freedom. Together, we could achieve more than either civilization could alone. And if I reject this proposal, Valen inquired, if I order the complete destruction of Earth and all its colonies, then we will fight to the last human, Bowers stated simply. And we will ensure that the cost to the Dominion is so catastrophic that your own people will question the pattern for the first time in 10 millennia. The implied threat hung in the air between them, not delivered with anger or defiance, but as a simple statement of fact. Valen recognized the truth in her words. The humans had already demonstrated their willingness to sacrifice everything rather than submit. Their psychological profile guaranteed a resistance unlike any the Dominion had faced. I must consult with the Dominion War Council, Valen said finally. This situation has no precedent. Of course, Bowers agreed. In the meantime, I propose a ceasefire. Your fleet remains in position, but no further hostilities from either side. Valen nodded once, the closest a Kharan admiral could come to compromise. Agreed. 48 hours. As the formal meeting concluded, Bowers approached Valen directly, her advisors and guards remaining at a respectful distance. Before you return to your ship, Admiral, I'd like to show you something, if you're willing. Curiosity, another trait rarely cultivated in Kharan commanders, stirred within Valen. Lead on, General. Bowers guided him through the habitat's corridors. Saren and Nirales, following at a discreet distance. They descended several levels, the military and administrative sections giving way to what appeared to be residential areas. The sounds changed, military precision replaced by the chaotic energy of civilian life. Voices raised in conversation, laughter, even music, concepts that existed in Kharan society but were rigidly controlled and compartmentalized. They emerged into a large open space, a park within the station, its ceiling a convincing projection of Earth's sky. Children played across the carefully cultivated grass, their movements unrestricted by the military discipline that would have been imposed on Kharan youths. Adults watched from benches or participated in the games, their attention focused on the moment, rather than efficiency or purpose. What am I observing? Valen asked, genuinely perplexed by the display. Life, Admiral. Bowers replied simply. Not survival, not function, but life. This is what we fight for. not just to exist, but to live with meaning, with joy, with purpose beyond conquest or submission. A small object rolled to a stop at Valen's feet. A toy shuttle, crudely but lovingly crafted to resemble the vessels that had carried humanity to the stars. A child approached cautiously, eyes wide at the sight of the alien admiral, with his formal armor and battle decorations. "Yours?" Valen inquired, bending to retrieve the toy. The child nodded, seemingly frozen between fear and fascination. Valen examined the shuttle, noting the imaginative details that had no functional purpose. Decorations added purely for aesthetic value. Modifications that defied aerodynamic logic, but clearly brought the creator joy. He offered the toy back to the child with formal Karan precision. The child hesitated, then took it with a smile before running back to their companions. "Imagination," Valen observed. "Your species values it highly. It's how we survived as a species before we had technology or physical advantages," Bowers explained. "We imagined better futures, then found ways to create them. It's how we've pushed beyond our limitations, because we refuse to accept that limitations are permanent." As they returned to the docking bay, Valen remained silent, processing what he had witnessed. The humans fought with desperate innovation, not from fear, but from hope, the irrational yet powerful belief that they could shape a future different from what logic dictated. Back aboard his flagship, Valen convened the Karan War Council. Senior commanders joined via quantum communication from across the Armada. The debate was unprecedented in its intensity and division. "Total extermination is the only logical response," Admiral Rethex insisted, his holographic form shimmering with barely contained fury. "These humans have defied the pattern. They have damaged Dominion vessels. They have killed Dominion soldiers. The pattern must be maintained. Yet their adaptive capabilities represent a potential asset," countered Strategic Director Valsha. "No species has reverse-engineered Dominion technology so quickly. No species has developed counter-tactics to our standard deployment patterns. Their mental processes could enhance Dominion expansion. Through conquest, not alliance," Rethex argued. "We subjugate, then assimilate valuable traits. We do not negotiate with lesser species." Valen listened to the arguments, his silver eyes focused on the tactical display showing Earth and its orbital habitat. 10,000 worlds had fallen to the pattern. One world had broken it. The implications extended beyond this single conflict. If the humans could resist, might other species follow their example? Would the pattern that had served the Dominion for 10 millennia begin to unravel? "Admiral Kor," Rethex demanded, "you have faced these humans directly. What is your assessment? Can they be conquered through standard protocols?" Valen considered his response carefully. The pattern demanded that he advocate for total subjugation. Yet his direct experience suggested an alternative path, one never before considered in Dominion strategy. "The humans possess psychological traits unique among encountered species," he stated formally. "Their concepts of hope and sacrifice create resistance patterns that defy standard conquest protocols. Complete extermination would require resources beyond the capacity of the Third Armada." The admission sent shockwaves through the Council. Never had a Dominion admiral suggested that conquest might exceed available resources. "What do you propose?" Strategic Director Valsha inquired, leaning forward in her holographic projection. "A temporary accommodation," Valen replied, choosing his words with precision. "Not alliance, but controlled interaction. We study their adaptive capabilities while maintaining military presence in their system. We learn what makes them unique, then determine whether to incorporate these traits through standard assimilation or develop new protocols specific to their psychology." The debate continued for hours, arguments cascading through the quantum network as commanders across the Armada contributed their perspectives. Throughout, Valen maintained his position, neither advocating for immediate conquest nor accepting the humans' proposal of alliance. Instead, he charted a middle path, a temporary deviation from the pattern, justified by the unique circumstances. Finally, with the Council's reluctant approval, Valen prepared to return to New Terra. As he adjusted his formal armor, Saren approached. "Admiral," she began, her voice lower than protocol required. "May I speak freely?" "Proceed, Lieutenant Commander. I have served under your command for 17 standard years. I have witnessed your tactical brilliance across dozens of conquests. Yet I have never seen you hesitate until we encountered these humans." Valen turned to face his aide, studying her expression. "Your observation?" "The humans have not merely demonstrated tactical innovations," Saren stated carefully. "They have introduced concepts alien to Karan thinking. Honor has always meant victory to our people. Perhaps there is honor in restraint as well. In another time, such a statement might have been considered treason against Dominion doctrine. Yet, after facing human resistance, after witnessing their willingness to sacrifice rather than submit, Valen found himself considering her words. An interesting hypothesis, Lieutenant Commander, one that requires further study. Earth's Defense Council had convened in parallel to the Karan War Council. Though with far less formal structure and considerably more passionate debate, General Bowers stood before the assembled representatives from Earth and its colonies, presenting the results of her meeting with Admiral Kor. "The Admiral has returned to his flagship to consult with his superiors," she explained. "We have a 48-hour ceasefire to determine our next steps." "What are our options, realistically?" asked the representative from the Mars evacuation group. Her expression hardened by the loss of her colony. "They have 500 capital ships. We have New Terra and a handful of defensive platforms." "Two options," Bowers replied frankly. "We can demand complete Dominion withdrawal from our solar system, a position that will almost certainly trigger renewed hostilities. Or, we can pursue the alliance proposal, offering peaceful coexistence and cultural exchange. After they destroyed Mars Colony? After they bombarded Luna Station?" the Mars representative challenged. "How can we consider peace with those who've killed thousands of our people?" Dr. Eleanor Rivas, recently exchanged in a prisoner transfer, raised her hand. "If I may, General, the Quran are not inherently malevolent. Their psychology evolved differently from ours. They conquering because that is all they know, the pattern they followed for 10 millennia, without encountering meaningful resistance. Until us," Commander Cade noted from his position near the wall, still wearing the formal uniform he'd donned for the diplomatic meeting. "Until us," Rivas confirmed. "We've introduced uncertainty into their perfect pattern. We've demonstrated concepts alien to their thinking, hope, sacrifice, imagination. They're curious about us as much as they're determined to conquer us. So we use their curiosity as leverage," Bowers suggested. "We offer knowledge exchange rather than submission." "And if they reject our offer?" the Mars representative pressed. "If they choose extermination?" Bowers' expression hardened. "Then we implement Phoenix Protocol. Every remaining ship, every weapon, every person capable of fighting, all committed to ensuring the Dominion remembers Earth for the next 10,000 years." The vote was closer than Bowers had hoped. The collective trauma of Mars and Luna creating a powerful faction, advocating for continued resistance at any cost. Yet in the end, the alliance proposal prevailed by a narrow margin. Humanity would offer peace, while preparing for the alternative. As the 48-hour deadline approached, a neutral meeting ground was established, an uninhabited moon in the outer system, equidistant from Earth and the Dominion fleet's position. A temporary structure had been erected on the airless surface, environmental systems creating a habitable bubble for the historic summit. Admiral Valen Kor arrived with a minimal escort, Sarantala, Archivist Nirales, and 2 honor guards in formal battle dress. General Bowers matched his approach, bringing Commander Cade, Dr. Rivas, and 2 Earth Defense Force officers. They met in the center of the transparent dome, the stars visible through the ceiling, the barren lunar landscape stretching beyond the environmental barriers. No weapons were permitted within the structure, a concession both leaders had accepted with formal reluctance and practical relief. "Admiral Kor," Bowers greeted him with the human military salute. "General Bowers," Valen replied, performing the Karan gesture of respect between equals, a symbolic act that sent a clear message to both delegations. The negotiations proceeded with the careful precision of 2 powers who had tested each other's resolve and found neither wanting. The Karan War Council had authorized a temporary accommodation, not alliance, but a controlled interaction that would allow for study of human adaptive capabilities. The Earth Defense Council had approved a phased approach to cooperation, beginning with scientific exchange, proceeding to cultural interaction only after establishing mutual trust. The resulting document, the first formal treaty between the Karan Dominion and a non-subjugated species, established parameters that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. Earth and its colonies would remain sovereign. The Dominion would withdraw its armada to the system's edge, maintaining an observatory presence rather than an invasion force. Joint research stations would be established to study technologies of mutual interest, human adaptive engineering, and Karan warp drive refinements. As the formal terms were finalized, Valen made an unprecedented gesture. He removed his command insignia, the symbol of his authority within the Dominion hierarchy, and placed it on the table between them. "A token," he explained, "of Karan recognition of human resilience." Bowers nodded, understanding the significance of the act. From her uniform, she removed the Earth Defense Force emblem, a stylized representation of the planet with protective hands cradling it. "A symbol of human willingness to extend trust," she replied, placing it beside his insignia. The exchange complete, both leaders reached forward simultaneously to retrieve the other's token, the first tangible objects to pass between their civilizations without the context of conflict. In the days that followed, the pattern that had defined Karan expansion for 10 millennia underwent its first intentional modification. The massive Dominion warships retreated from their attack positions, assuming a monitored presence at the system's edge. Earth's defensive platforms remained active, but stood down from high alert. The tense standoff that had brought both civilizations to the brink of catastrophic conflict gradually transformed into cautious coexistence. 6 months later, the first joint research station was established in orbit around Saturn, neutral territory where Karan and human scientists could work together without the immediate pressure of military oversight. Admiral Valen Kor, still commanding the Third Armada, but now in an observational rather than conquest capacity, made a formal inspection of the facility. As he moved through the station's corridors, he noted the striking blend of design philosophies: Karan geometric precision, complemented by human organic aesthetics. Where Dominion architecture would have created perfect right angles, human influence had introduced curves and asymmetrical elements. The result was neither fully Karan nor fully human, but something new, an emergent pattern beyond either civilization's original vision. In the station's central atrium, a zero-gravity recreation area had been established. Karan researchers, accustomed to rigid discipline, even in leisure periods, watched with puzzled fascination as human children played in the weightless environment, tumbling through carefully designed obstacle courses, inventing games with floating objects, creating patterns with their movements that defied prediction but contained their own internal logic. Valen paused at the observation window, studying the scene with analytical interest. Beside him, Sarantala and archivist Nirales maintained respectful silence, allowing their commander to process the unprecedented interaction. A small object drifted toward the window, a toy shuttle, similar to the one he had encountered on New Terra, but with modifications. This version incorporated elements of Karan design, the sleek darkness of Dominion vessels, blended with human aesthetic touches. A child followed the toy, using gentle pushes against handholds to navigate the zero-gravity environment. The child noticed Valen watching and, after a moment's hesitation, offered the toy through the communication panel. "Would you like to try, sir?" the child asked, the translation system rendering their words in perfect Quran. Valen hesitated, aware of his officers observing this unprecedented interaction. Then, with the same precision he applied to military decisions, he accepted the toy shuttle through the transfer slot. "Its design is innovative," he observed, examining the hybrid creation. Karan stealth surfaces with human maneuverability parameters. The child grinned. "My mom works on the warp drive research team. She says sometimes the best ideas come from putting different things together." Valen considered this simple wisdom, a concept that would have been dismissed as inefficient in traditional Karan thinking, yet had produced the very innovation that allowed human vessels to penetrate Dominion defenses. "A valid hypothesis," he acknowledged, returning the toy. "One that warrants further investigation." Later, in the station's command center, Valen reviewed the project status reports with Station Director Dr. Minerva Chen, a human xenophysicist who had been selected for her exceptional adaptive thinking and diplomatic skills. "The warp drive refinements are proceeding ahead of schedule," Dr. Chen reported. "Your engineers were skeptical of our modulation approach, but the simulations show a 17% efficiency increase when implemented." "And the adaptive defense systems?" Valen inquired. "Your biomechanical interfaces are remarkable," Chen acknowledged. "Once our team understood the underlying principles, we were able to suggest modifications that allow for faster response to unexpected threats. The hybrid system outperforms both original designs and stress tests." Valen nodded, satisfaction evident in his silver eyes. "Project Unity appears to be fulfilling its research parameters." Dr. Chen smiled, a human expression Valen had learned to recognize as indicating both agreement and positive emotional response. "More than that, Admiral, the cultural exchange has produced unexpected benefits beyond the technological innovations. Your archivist team has been particularly interested in human creative expression, while our psychologists have been fascinated by Quran collective decision-making processes." As they concluded their meeting, Dr. Chen presented a data crystal containing the combined research findings. "The Defense Council has approved sharing these results with the Dominion War Council," she explained, a gesture of continued trust. Valen accepted the crystal with formal Karan precision. "The War Council has authorized reciprocal sharing of subspace navigation techniques. Knowledge exchange proceeds according to treaty parameters." As he prepared to return to his flagship, Valen paused in the station's observation lounge, gazing out at Saturn's magnificent rings. Saren joined him, maintaining proper protocol, but standing closer than Karen military discipline typically permitted. "Your assessment of Project Unity, Admiral?" she inquired. "The human concept of collaboration produces efficiency patterns that diverge from Dominion projections," Valen replied, his formal language barely containing the unprecedented concepts he was processing. "Their psychological traits, particularly hope and imagination, create solution paths that Koran logic would not identify." "And the Dominion's response to these findings?" Valen considered the question carefully. The pattern that had guided Karan expansion for 10 millennia had encountered its first exception, a species that could not be conquered through standard protocols. The logical response would have been extermination. Yet the Dominion had chosen a different path: observation, interaction, adaptation. "The Dominion evolves," he stated simply, "as all successful species must." Saren nodded, understanding the profound shift in thinking those 3 words represented. For a civilization built on the certainty of conquest, the acknowledgement of necessary evolution marked a transformation as significant as any technological breakthrough. "The War Council has approved the expansion of Project Unity," Valen continued. Joint exploration vessels will be commissioned to survey uncharted systems beyond Sol. Human adaptive capabilities paired with Dominion technical precision. A new pattern, Saren observed. Yes, Valen agreed, watching as Saturn's rings caught the distant sunlight, transforming the ice particles into millions of individual stars. Not conquest, not submission, but something unexpected. In the habitat section below, human children continued their zero-gravity games, their movements unpredictable yet purposeful. Among them now were the first Karan youths, permitted to engage in unstructured play, an educational experiment approved by the Dominion hierarchy as a potential means of developing adaptive thinking. Admiral Valen Kor, conqueror of countless worlds, watched as the children, human and Karen, created patterns that defied prediction yet contained their own internal harmony. For 10,000 years, the Dominion had brought order to chaos through subjugation. Now, for the first time, they were learning to find order within chaos itself, not by eliminating the unpredictable, but by embracing it. The shuttle toy drifted past the observation window again, its hybrid design a symbol of what could emerge when different civilizations chose cooperation over conquest. Valen tracked its movement with his silver eyes, recognizing in its trajectory something he had never truly understood until encountering the humans: the power of imagination to create futures that logic alone could never envision. Beyond the station, beyond Saturn's majestic rings, the stars beckoned, thousands of unexplored systems waiting to be discovered. This time, the Karen ships would arrive not as conquerors, but as explorers. Their crews including both silver-skinned Dominion officers and the pink-hued humans whose resistance had transformed the pattern of 10 millennia. Project Unity had begun. Not the unity of subjugation that the Dominion had imposed across 10,000 worlds, but the unity of shared purpose and mutual respect. A new pattern, woven from threads of hope and precision, imagination and order. Admiral Valen Kor, first diplomat of the Karan Dominion, turned from the observation window and proceeded to the docking bay. The pattern had changed, and with it, the future of two civilizations. For the first time in 10,000 years, the path ahead was uncertain. And in that uncertainty lay possibilities beyond even Karan imagination.